Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian. I guess Everdell Warwick as of right now, because today is my wedding day, and I'm super excited about that. I'm obviously not recording this on my wedding day, but at the time of this episode coming out, it will be my wedding day. And honestly, I'm not going to check any stats on this podcast today or on the day of this. I'm just excited about getting married. And if you listen to this podcast frequently, you've probably heard me talk about this wedding for the last three episodes. But obviously, that's a big deal, much bigger than any marathon. And I can't wait. On today's episode, we're having Hussain Al-Zubaidi on, and this is a fun one. I met Hussein in Boston randomly when we were trying on some recovery boots at Marathon Sports, and I started talking to him and his wife, and he was gonna run Boston. She was gonna run London the weekend after. I know that his goal was to run a sub 2:45. He crushed it, ran a 2:37. I also realized during our conversation here that we actually met one more time in Boston, and that was just before the start around the porta potty situation there. Um, in this episode or on this episode, we are chatting about running, obviously, but Hussein has several roles. He's a doctor, he is part of Parkrun, and he's a runner himself. And the one thing that I probably find the most inspiring about this story is that at 25, he was told he has fatty liver disease or fatty liver. I think that's how you say that. That he was overweight and he needed to kind of, yeah, he was told that he needed to get on medication. He started running instead. And now he's a 2:37 marathoner, which I think is just so cool to think about. And so we talked about his training, what changes he made, about listening to your body, also about, can everyone really run? Is it possible for everyone? I mean, it seems like it with his background. And then we also talked about parkrun, what it is, and how we all can get engaged or involved in it. And I think it's really interesting. So I can't wait to check out park runs in Oslo. Hopefully that's something I can join every now and then going forward. And yeah, this conversation was just so cool. I feel like there were so many things that I wanted to touch on. We touched on a lot, and we probably could have talked for hours. I really hope that you are enjoying this episode on my wedding day. If you're listening to it on this Friday, a little bit focused on myself today, but I hope that's okay. And yeah, enjoy this conversation with Hussein. Hussein, nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you. Who would have thought?
Yeah, was just saying it's incredible what a couple of minutes with some recovery boots in Boston can do. That's how we met in that little room back there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was on Bolston Street, wasn't it? In one of the marathon sports stores.
Yeah.
Much needed recovery boots.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like it really worked for you. We before we dive into everything, we have to talk about Boston and your 2:37 race. Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was the marathon that I'd been hoping for because I've done a fair few, and the previous year, in all of 2025, it was failure after failure. Like 2024 was fantastic, and like for example, I did a 2:44 in Chicago in 2024, and that was kind of early in the progress that I was making, and I really thought that it was going to go really well in 2025. I did Boston 25, and I got a 2:54, but like it was just a whole disaster. It wasn't just on the day, a number of injuries, training not quite going right. Looking back on it now, I realized that I wasn't allowing enough recovery in my training, and I also was putting too much on the hard sessions and volume. So I was just giving myself too much to do, and my body wasn't responding to it quick enough. And I think one thing I switched from about sort of the autumn of 25 going into Boston in the next year was I adapted the plan based on how I was feeling. I wasn't
Mm.
afraid to say, do you know what? My legs do not feel good today. we're not doing a tempo session. We are either going to do an easy run or we're going to have a rest day.
Mm.
And at first it can be quite difficult because my mentality is, try and do the most you can, like highly motivated. But sometimes it's the right thing to do, and I found that after a few weeks of that, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, I was getting better, and I was like, okay, so clearly this is working. I don't need to stress so much that I'm slacking off. And on the day itself, in terms of the execution, it couldn't have gotten any better.
It was cool to see, and I love that because on your Instagram it said project sub 245, and then you run a 237. That's pretty cool.
I know, I know. Like deep down, I knew that I could run close to a 240 because one of my friends is Dr. Mikhail Zanini, who works in Loughborough University, and he invited me in to do some like long run testing as well as VO2 max testing, lactate threshold. And so he had a really good idea as to what was achievable, and he said that like I should be able to get a 242 with pretty good confidence. I should potentially be able to get between a sort of a 37 to a 40 if all goes well. And the conditions that we did the training in, obviously was on a treadmill, so it's flat and Boston isn't. And it was hotter, so it was at 20 degrees. So he said that with that, and if Boston is cooler, you may be able to do a bit better. So I think the 37 very much aligned with what was a very cool day, which works really well for me. And so I had that confidence knowing that physiologically I could do it. The question is that could I execute it? That's a whole different ball game. But luckily it happened.
Yeah. And I realized now that we were talking about the race that we actually met twice because we also do you remember that we just when I think you came out of one of the porta potties just in that messy area.
Yes, yes,
Yes. And
yes.
I was on my way in, so I was stressed out because we had like just a couple of minutes, and then you were like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's you," and then you ran.
Yeah, I know. We were both pretty tight because I literally got to the start line like a few minutes before it began. Because it's so long, isn't it?
I
When
know,
they get
yeah.
you in from the pen, you literally have to walk about a marathon to get to
Yeah.
the start.
Yeah. And it was much more crowded than I expected in that, like with the bathroom situation. Did you see the people getting the DQs? That's
Oh
heartbreak.
no, no. What do you mean? What happened?
No, so people just try to pee behind or find somewhere to pee, and then there were officials walking up to them taking their bibs. So
Oh.
and I still to this day I don't know if they were actually disqualified, but he said, "Sorry, I just have to follow the rules." And you just saw the face of the people, and then he he scanned their bibs,
Oof.
and I heard from other people that they also took the bibs. So I don't know if they're yeah
Oh my goodness. Well, like I don't know if you have, well, London Marathon, people are weeing all over the shop.
yeah
No one's
yeah.
no one's
I was I was
because
saying
like
that
at
on the
London is probably
podcast
the
too.
worst when it comes. Say again?
No, no, keep going. Sorry.
Oh yeah, London is like the worst when it comes to providing enough portaloos for everyone. Like literally, you have to queue up for like 45 minutes, an hour minimum.
Yeah.
And so there's just people weeing, like, and including women weeing like all over the place. If they disqualified it, half the field would be gone.
Yeah, I saw someone
That
commenting that
seems
actually.
harsh.
Yeah.
That
It
seems
seems
harsh.
harsh, but it's also so I'm trying to look at it from both sides because it's not legal in the US to do that in general. So
Yeah.
they're trying to uphold the laws and rules, and like we are in just this tiny little town where there are private
Yeah, true.
properties
Yeah,
and
they don't
all of
want it
it.
to be a
So,
massive puddle
so
of
I
wee.
guess it's like we're talking about it here now. I've talked about it on the podcast before, which probably means that there are a few thousand people less who will do that next year if they're listening and running the Boston. So I guess it's hard, but the problem was, and I heard actually people working there, they were saying it, and I could hear the desperation in their voice. They were like, "We don't have enough," because they didn't have enough, especially at that spot that we saw each other.
Yeah,
That was way too crowded, and especially with 10 minutes to the start. That's
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Because it was actually all right in the athletes'
yeah,
village
yeah.
area. Getting a toilet is pretty easy, especially if you sort of turn right when you come in to the area. Those ones weren't used as much, and
No,
so I was quite impressed with that section. But yeah, definitely in that bit there, it was much worse than the previous year. Although it seemed like they had the same number of portaloos, but the previous year I found it really easy to get in there, and the queue was pretty non-existent. But
yeah,
this year
and
it
and
seems to
what
be
I
much
realized
busier.
is that you have two. sections just before the start. So there's one which is next to
Oh,
the CVS, and that is like on the left hand side
ah,
just before, and
yeah,
that
okay,
area is much bigger, and you have urinals for men, so that made it much easier. And so I
yeah,
was aiming at that one, but then for some reason we probably walked past it without seeing it because of all the people,
yeah. I
and
must have not
then
seen it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't see it.
yeah,
I must have gone into that last year, I suspect.
yeah. Well, we're not here to talk about that. It's a funny little detail, but there are so many things to talk to you about, and I don't even know where to start. But there's one thing I guess, like, okay, before we start that, why don't you present yourself? You're better to present yourself than I am. So,
Yeah.
who are you, just as a person, but also as a runner?
Yeah. So I am, well, my name's Hussein. I'm based in the UK, in the West Midlands, and I got into running about 12 years ago through work. So I work as a general practitioner, family doctor. And at the time, I was very sedentary. I didn't enjoy physical activity at school. I wasn't ever any good at it. And my parents always discouraged it. They always wanted me to focus on academia. And when I was in this meeting at work, they told us about the local park run, which was an event that happens every Saturday and it's in a number of countries across the world. But in the UK, it's particularly well developed. And they wanted to signpost more patients from the surgery to park run. And so I thought, oh, this sounds pretty good, but I'd never done much running, let alone any walking. My wife had just taken up running and she's probably been about 8, 10 months into it at that point. So I told her, I said, oh, there's this park run thing that I think you may enjoy. I'm going to go because all the other colleagues are going. Do you want to come? So anyway, she comes down. It seems like her bag. And I thought I'll just go and just, I don't know, see what happens. But I'm not a runner. And I go on the start line and the infectious energy that you realize, because I've never been to like a sporting event, but just being there with other people, there was about 400 or 500 people,
How
and
old were
there's,
you at this point?
oh god, so I'd have been like 25, twenty
Mhm.
six, kind of thing. And like like picture, I'm about 96 kilos. Unfortunately very overweight. I've been diagnosed with high blood pressure. I've been diagnosed with something called fatty liver disease. And so I knew I had to do something for my health. And I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to go. And I said, okay, let me join my colleagues. I probably do need to do something. And I'm at the start line, the excitement's sort of getting to you. And I'm like, oh, I've never felt this before. This seems fun. And I started running, even though I'd never run before. And the first 400 meters, I was incredible. Like, honestly, I was like a gazelle. And I thought, you know, this is easy. Like, why are people stressing out about this running? And then I started to notice something that I genuinely, is such a shame, but I'd never experienced because I'd never really done any sport. Was your legs get heavy, the breathing was burning, and I was just like, oh my god, this is awful. I thought I was dying at one point. And about 2K in, I just have to like completely stop and have a vomit. And I'm just on the side, and if it wasn't for my wife, a few of the patients that recognized me, unfortunately, like they dragged me to the end, and it was slow. I don't even know what time it was, but it was nothing within a kind of any semi kind of reasonable, apart from being able to finish it. And although it was extraordinarily tough, that was the thing that made me wanted to do running. And from then it sort of transformed my career. So if you kind of want to know the rest about me, I love triathlons. I love running and swimming and cycling. I try to translate that kind of personal journey that I went on in improving my health for patients to encourage them to find movement, whatever that may be. Running, excellent. If it's something else, also brilliant. And so I've worked with lots of sort of big charities to encourage movement, whether that's Age UK or Parkrun or many of the other health conditions within the UK. And I'm really passionate for people to find movement that works for them and to enjoy it, and to do it in a way that they want to do it.
Mhm. Yeah. It's incredible when you hear these stories, because now you're a 2:37 marathoner, and when you listed the things that were like the things that you were struggling with back when you were doing that first park run, can you say something about, I guess, actually, like, how you feel today compared to how you felt back then?
Yeah. Because if you asked me then, what were my kind of problems health wise, I would have told you, yeah, fat in the liver, blood pressure too high. But what I didn't realize then is that I was also struggling with fatigue all the time. I was also struggling with low self confidence, with anxiety. I was struggling with energy levels. And so I didn't realize that until I didn't experience them. Do you know what I mean? When
Yeah.
it's like not having them, I thought, oh God, like I just got used to that. I got used to
Mm.
waking up in the morning and feeling, you know, worn out. I just thought that that was just normal.
Yeah.
And it actually, even though before then I really focused on my career, and that's why I didn't do any kind of physical activity or exercise. So I was so like focused on, getting publications, getting career development, etc. When I actually took a step back from that to spend more time being active because I was enjoying that, and I decided, okay, career is one thing, but I want to make sure that I have my health. And so I started reducing my hours and reducing the sessions, working part time, and finding more time to do the things I loved. My career actually developed better because one
Yeah.
of the most, I think, unspoken bits about whether it's running, cycling, whatever it is, when you're progressing, is it improves your concentration, it improves your memory, improves your creativity. And like my career just took a absolute like exponential growth, even though I took my foot off the gas on the career side. I was just doing better in the hours that I was giving it. And so, like I started working on TV as a doctor. I started getting promotions into sort of senior roles within, national healthcare systems like the Royal College of GPs, etc. And these were all things that I really was trying to work hard with before getting active, but it all became a lot easier when I started implementing that side of me. I felt like I was suddenly learning new skills that I didn't have before.
Yeah. Wow. This is interesting what you were just saying because like you said, in your family, it seemed like the academia was kind of the priority, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you neglect the physical part, then you might not do as well with that. And so, like, if anyone listening to this and they're like, yeah, I really want to succeed with my career, whether that is like finance, doctor, like medicine, whatever it is,
Mm,
I think that the things you're talking about here, they're so important because if you really want to excel, you'll be more efficient. So yes, you might spend an
yeah.
hour less studying or working, but that hour, if you spend that running or some physical activity, you'll get so much more back from the 10 hours that you'll be working or pursuing your career, right?
100%. Like it's a bit of a leap of faith for people that aren't yet in that position because it just doesn't seem to make mathematical sense. But I can promise you, and actually, what I started to realize was as I sort of moved up in seniority, and I was looking at the other leaders in this space, they were doing the same thing. It
Mhm.
wasn't always running, but it was some form of physical activity, whether it was strength training, cycling, running, and you could see this common thread that it was an important tool in the armory to support with either the actual productivity of the work they're doing or relieving the stress of having high responsibility in a role. So, like, people often feel like they don't have time to be active, but I would say that you don't have time not to be active
Exactly. Yeah.
because it will just make everything else more efficient. Whether it is you're quicker to get to bed and to get onset of sleep, you're quicker to think of ideas and solutions and problems, and the final one is actually something that I found before I'd gotten active was you sort of build up certain stresses and you become less empathetic and you listen less. And actually, one
Mhm.
thing that I learned from, especially doing long distance running and that kind of stuff, is you become way more patient. You are able to just endure struggle for that bit longer, knowing that, okay, no, let's just give it a bit more time. Let me just hold on here. A solution will present itself, and you just experience that when whether it's marathon running or long distance cycling, etc. You experience different challenges that you can translate into the real world. And yeah, I never thought that when I
Yeah.
lined up on that first park run, I never thought that those were the things that I was going to get the benefits from. I just purely viewed it as a way to lose a bit of weight,
Hmm.
but it's so much more complicated than that.
Yeah. And I guess like now, obviously, you're talking about the things you're talking about. You're much more aware of these things. You've seen it for yourself, I'm sure. So you said you excelled in your career, but it's also probably made you a better doctor just because you know more, you understand more. But do you ever reflect looking back? because I assume you were a doctor also when you were,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was. Yeah,
Like, do you ever reflect on the fact that or were you not aware, or did you try to neglect that?
it's a
Do you
great
think, like,
question.
yeah,
It's a great question, and I think, unfortunately, definitely in the case of the UK, the vast majority of healthcare professionals do not appreciate the value of physical activity, of high quality nutrition, of sleep, of healthy relationships, all the key pillars of
hmm,
lifestyle medicine. And I definitely didn't. And that was someone that got top marks at university, won lots of awards in terms of, really learning the content, but we just don't get taught it.
no,
We just simply do not get taught any of that. So how can we really appreciate it? But of course, if you asked me, is being active important? Is it good for health? I would have said yes.
hmm,
But I saw it instead as a nice to have and something that I would do maybe eventually. I never saw it as a priority worthy enough to focus on there and then. And it's so hard to juggle all the different things that we have to prioritize. But if I didn't get the health conditions that I did, I probably would have never actually found the time. It would
hmm,
always been, oh, in a few weeks or in a
yeah,
few months. I would have never really got down to it. And also the few times that I attempted getting active, I purely viewed it as like a how many calories can I burn? Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And God, it's so useless for that. You know what I mean? Like it really is. Like you just look at it and it's like 2 Mars bars. That's all you've done for like all the hard work you put
exactly.
in. And I'd highly discourage people from thinking of physical activity as a way to lose weight. Instead, think of it as a way to get stronger, more confident, all the things we just talked about.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess you touched on this in terms of, the things that you saw that you were struggling with at the time. But I know that there was like a specific moment where you had some blood work done and
Mm.
and things changed. Will you tell that story?
Yeah, so like I had some blood tests done as part of a routine set of bloods because when we work in healthcare, we have to have certain vaccinations to protect us against, if, for example, I have a needle stick injury, and for example, hepatitis, HIV, etc. So we have to have routine blood tests, and one of them includes the liver function, and the my liver function markers were raised, implying that my liver was inflamed. And so the next step is to get an ultrasound scan of the liver to try to identify what's causing that. And I remember to this day, I know exactly what he looks like, the sonographer, because he sort of turned around and he looks at me and he said, "You've got one of the fattest livers I have ever seen." And I was just like, okay, that's not the league table I wanted to top. And like at the time, look, I was overweight, but I was not like seriously overweight. Like it's about 95, 96 kilos, which don't get me wrong, is significantly overweight. I'm about 76, 77 kilos now. And but what I later realized when I did further research was that where people deposit fat is very different, dependent in particular on their ethnicities. So those from South Asian backgrounds, Middle Eastern backgrounds, etc., they're far more likely to deposit fat in the organs, what we call ectopic fat, and
Huh.
viscerally in the abdomen. And that kind of fat is very different metabolically to subcutaneous fat, which is the fat that you can see sort of visually when you're looking at someone's body habitus.
So is
And
this what we
that
call? I
particular,
remember in elementary school we called it skinny fat or something like that. When you're
yeah,
very
exactly. Yeah,
unhealthy,
that's
but
kind of like,
you
yeah, that's
still
the
look
lay term
skinny, kind of.
for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's that kind of fat is not, you can't visualize it unless you get a ultrasound and you see it in the liver, in the pancreas, and it also goes in the muscles. But it is really harmful. It's really harmful, and that's why I was seeing changes like high blood pressure, like fatty liver disease at a weight that you wouldn't normally see. And just to give you an idea in comparison, for someone from a white family background, let's say the BMI is 30, 30, for someone from a South Asian background to have the equal level of risk to get type 2 diabetes or other complications, the BMI needs to be just 23.9.
Wow.
It's huge. So if you look at, let's say, the BMI cutoffs for a white family background, 20 to 25 is healthy.
Mhm.
So 23.9 is relatively comfortably in the healthy zone. And so, for example, on the NHS, so the National Health Service in the UK, if you go on the BMI calculator on the website, now it asks you for your ethnicity because
Uh-huh.
it gives you different ranges depending on which ethnicity you are. So you know what healthy is. So therefore, from South Asian, it's from 20 to 23
Mhm.
to make it clear that actually at 23 and above, you start to have problems. Now, you could view that as seriously bad luck. Yeah, maybe. I instead viewed it as this is real incentive that I don't just need to get good. I need to get really good.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that I have optimal body composition, that I have good physical fitness, and that I really look after myself. And it sort of set me on this path where I wasn't just going to do a bit of jogging.
Yeah.
Like I knew that I had to create an identity, one of an athlete. Yes, I may not ever go. Well, I know I'm never going to go to the Olympics, but like I am going to be the athlete in my mind, in, for example, how I look after myself and how I prioritize things
Yeah.
when it comes to work, social life, etc.
Wow. So that moment really changed your life. That was kind of the
Oh,
moment where
massively.
everything changed. Wow.
Massively. It honestly, it changed so much. It changed even like yes, I've talked about my work in terms of like how it progressed after that point. It changed also my relationships in the sense that I really wanted to make sure I had healthy relationships, people that were promoting good health and
Yeah.
not ones that were promoting toxic behaviors. Because at the end of the day, one of the reasons I'd got into that hole was because I was, practicing toxic lifestyles to just survive the stress. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like whether it been getting a takeaway or, maybe a bit too much alcohol and, things that were coping in the short term, but were just making everything harder in the long term.
Yeah. This is cool. I think it is cool to hear, how things changed like that, and especially seeing where you are today and the things you're promoting. And it brings me to one of the things that, so we met, and then I started following you on Instagram, and then you were I don't know if you were like the main source to that, like revealing kind of Nike's
I was the first
yeah,
one.
you
I
were
was the
right.
first one. Yeah.
Because I feel like, in sometimes in like our day and age, we might be a bit too offended by things, but that one really offended me as well. Like, not, and I've
Yeah.
never been a walker, but I've talked to enough people on this podcast. It sounds like you're coming from the same where you were walking, and it's just like some of the really fast marathoners today, people like yourself running in 2:37, they started walking, and so,
100%.
so discouraging walking that way, like that provoked me a lot. And I can only imagine what it did to you coming from where you were coming from. Can you say something about like your first thought when you saw that sign?
Yeah, I remember I'd landed in Boston and we were going down Newbury Street and it was like 5 days before the marathon. And I just saw it from distance and I was looking because I normally the Nike adverts I really like and they're
Yeah,
really kind of
me
kind of
too.
inspirational that they give you a real boost, on many of the major marathons that you do and you see their adverts. And so I was looking to kind of hopefully see, oh, what nice boost are you going to get? And it just said runners welcome, walkers tolerated. And I just like the thing is it didn't offend me so much when I was reading it, but I just thought, oh, like me 10 years ago reading that, I wouldn't be offended, but I would feel rubbish
Hmm.
and I would feel like I'm no good. And that I'm not doing real activity because at the beginning, walking was my running. Like walking was knackering. Genuinely, like people get DOMS, when they go to the gym. Like I was so inactive that when I went for a walk, I would get DOMS the next day. Like
Hmm.
that's how bad it was. And so if I got that kind of messaging at the various places that I would go and power walk and try and do stuff, I wouldn't have got anywhere near to where I got to today.
You would
But
not
the
be a
reason I got to where I
2:37
got to
marathoner.
today. Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I got to today because the people that I would walk with and the let's say at the park run that I went to, they were all so lovely and welcoming and encouraging and pushing me on, and they would clap for me as they would clap for the first person that came around the bend doing a ridiculous 5K. And I think it's really important that yes, I totally get Boston. The majority of people going in are qualifying. I qualified, and we can really kind of try to sell to those high performance individuals. Fair enough. You don't need to do that and punch down at the same time. Do you
No.
know what I mean? There is
No.
no need to make anyone feel unwelcomed. And so, yeah, I popped it on, and I remember that evening. I thought, okay, the usual sort of 6 followers will give it a like, and at least someone will read it, and I've got it off my chest. Like I woke up the next day, and the app just wouldn't load. Like it just kept loading and crashing, loading, and crashing. I was like, what's going on? Finally, when I saw it, like it had gone ballistic. It had gone absolutely ballistic. In the end, I did interviews on NBC, CBS, and a few of the UK ones, and it just went mad, and I just couldn't believe that Nike actually reversed it, and
Yeah,
they
I
put on a
know.
different advert instead. Just reminding that movement is movement essentially. But yeah, it's just one of those things that where sometimes you can actually get a positive change.
Yeah, you
Whether they
made
meant
a
it in the
change.
first place, I don't know, but at least we
No,
got somewhere.
I think the marketing team needs to really. I assume they've had some meetings after that. I hope they did,
Yeah,
because apparently they didn't
I
have any
really hope they
before.
do.
No.
Yeah, and it's just we have to always, no matter who you are or how amazing you are at something, you are even more amazing if you support someone else to do something as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not amazing because someone else is rubbish. I think that's the key. Like, it's not about comparing yourself to anyone, because I could easily compare myself and think, oh well, there were 899 people that were faster than me in Boston. Or I could just say that, do you know what? I did the best that I have ever done, and I put in a hell of a lot of work, and I achieved my maximum.
Hmm.
And I want everyone else that went into Boston and any other race and any other endeavor to do their best.
Yeah.
I'm not good because someone maybe called, Albert did it in 4 hours 42, and
Yeah.
oh, I'm better than them. That's not how we should view things. It's just such an awful way of doing it.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of brings me to the next thing that I want to ask you about. We're going to get to your running and your training eventually, too, because I think that the realizations that you made last fall will be very useful to talk about. But uh, when we met, you mentioned Parkrun to me, and I know about Parkrun because I have several friends, especially in the UK, who kind of like they started their running careers doing park
Mm.
runs, but it's not as big here. I actually met someone from the UK last Saturday, and he had done a couple of park runs here in Oslo. So it turns out that we do have them. It's starting to
Yeah,
grow.
I've done the one in
Oh,
Oslo.
you
I've done.
have?
It's got a hill. It's got a
Yeah,
steep
yep,
hill that you
yep.
have to do a
That's
few
what he
times.
said. Yeah. But it's such a cool thing, and something that I think that a lot of countries can definitely just benefit from copying the UK on of doing it and making it such a big thing. Because my impression is that now it's just become something that everyone can do and everyone does it. Like you, kind of back to what you were saying, regardless of level, whether you walk or you run. And I know that you also have, you're working with Parkrun. Will you, for the listeners who are not aware of what Parkrun is, maybe just give a brief introduction to what it is?
Absolutely. So Parkrun is a health and wellbeing charity that delivers weekly 5 kilometer events on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. In the UK. The time differs in different countries depending on the weather conditions to make sure it's right. And on a Sunday, junior parkrun. So for those between the ages of 4 and 14. And Parkrun is quite simply a community event in your local park where different people from all kinds of backgrounds will either run, walk, or volunteer. And all forms are celebrated, and it has grown massively. It was launched 22 years ago by a gentleman called Paul Swinton Hewitt, who was actually an injured runner and a very good runner, actually. And he wanted to stay connected with his running friends because he just felt his mental health was dipping because he wasn't able to go to the run club. So he thought, well, let me bring them all together. And what I could do is create a route around our local park that was 5K, get them to give it a good go, and I'll time it. And so I can be the volunteer, I'll time it, and I can keep a record for them. And then we can meet up every week. And that way I get to meet up with my friends. He was also he's a data analyst in terms of his sort of professional background. And he just thought, oh, it'll be interesting just to see the data, see how people improve in the club, etc. And it just slowly grew and grew. And now we have over 2,000 events. Like in the UK, nearly 500,000 people
It's
will
so
do
cool.
parkrun every Saturday. Like from the deputy chief medical officer, described as one of the greatest public health initiatives that there's ever been in the UK. And if you go to any park run, obviously it's completely free, always free. There is no
Yeah.
cost about any of it, you will see the wide range of people that go. You know, we've got people doing 14, 15-minute 5Ks. You know what I mean? Actual athletes that will use it as a place to, do a bit of a time trial. We've got people in the 90s, even in the hundreds, that are walking around in like an hour and 30 or, even longer. And we've got everything in between. And I
Mhm.
think that's what makes parkrun so beautiful, because when you go each week, you are one, looking to improve your own fitness. Two, you're spending time outside in nature. Three, it's the social connectedness, which now more than ever we need, in particular in the UK, where you're getting to know people in your community from all kinds of different backgrounds. And the amount of people and friends that I've made at Parkrun, like honestly, it probably dominates the sort of sphere of sort of new friendships that I've made over the last 5, 10 years. And it's just such a wholesome, simple, but beautiful thing that we're trying to spread out, because yes, UK, we've got well developed. Australia as well has got a number of park runs. We're in 22 countries in total, but for many of them, they're very much emerging. We've only just started there. So we want each country to take it as their own. So we don't want to just have like UK parkrun in all of these countries. We want, whether it be, let's say, in Norway, we want it to be Norway style,
Yeah.
like how whatever is culturally relevant and right for you, like that's how you deliver it. As long as it's in a park, you guys are running around or walking around and volunteering, it's how it goes for them. And because we know that movement's so important, but then when you do movement with nature and other people, you've got the perfect
Mm.
cocktail.
Yeah, it's so. I think it's such a cool initiative, and I think that, like you said, you meet people, you get friends, and maybe like for runners, it's a great way to meet other runners, and then you end up not just doing the park run together, but more runs together as well. Because that's one thing that I realized. So where I'm living, it's not where I grew up, and I have friends from all over Norway, but that means that although they are good friends of mine, they're not here to run with me, right? So the struggle sometimes, and especially in Norway, we don't tend to just reach out to random people. You have to have an excuse to have met, and then you can
Mm,
start doing that, right? Like that's kind of in our
yeah,
culture, and so I feel like
yeah,
this would be such a great enabler to do that, and you will get that, and you also mentioned, some maybe elite runners running really fast. Do they time you for this, or is that more like you
yeah.
you time yourself?
No, no, they time it, and you get loads of stats. So there's an app, a Parkrun app, where like I can see all the runs that I've done.
That's
Now,
so
for those
cool.
that don't want to get a time, you don't have to. So when you cross the finish line, someone gives you a little token, and that token you then just scan at this barcode machine, which is just near the end. If you want to get it the result, if you don't, then you just pop the token into the box, and
Great.
you
So
can
there's
just
like a
not get
starting
the
gun,
result.
and then based on when you get the token, almost that's where you get your
Exactly. So it's
time.
gun time purely rather than
Yeah,
chip
yeah.
time. And it's great. The stats are incredible. Like honestly, you can look through people's stats if the well, and you can see kind of how they've progressed, which runs they do, and they've gamified it. So we gamify as much as possible. So on the app, like for example, if you do park runs with certain letters, like people like to get the alphabet. So to do a park run with all the different letters as the first letter, and different locations, etc. So we try to make it as fun as possible, to enjoy the statistics of it. And in fact, all that data collection that we've done over the years from people's times, etc., it's so rich to try and understand like where the health of the nation's going, how we can improve. So, for example, year on year, the average 5K finishing time has got slower and slower. And you may think, oh, that's a bad sign. It's not. It's a
More
brilliant sign.
people.
It's telling you that more and more diverse range of
Yeah,
people are coming to the event,
yeah.
giving it a go. And that's some of the things that we try to focus on.
And love that concept, because you can hear, and I'm sure the listeners are like, "Oh, Christian, he's just focusing on the time." Because I immediately, I'm like, if I show up, I would probably want a time. Like I want to
Mm,
time myself. But it's genius because you're appealing to me and you're appealing to the walkers, right? Like, and it's
exactly.
so good. So people are like, some of them will be there and they have no idea how long it took them. They just know that they were social, made friends, and they were healthy, or doing a healthy
100%.
activity. And then you have people like
Yeah.
maybe you and me who are like, oh, I'm gonna check to see today whether I can run a PR or
For
not.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We even give you
Genius.
like your age grade percentage so you get an idea of like how you do percentage wise to others. So like for those with performance, they've got loads of stats in there they can play around with. For those that want to just get enjoyment and engagement, then there's loads of other numbers that they enjoy. Like for example, how many they've done in how many different locations. They get a nice map to sort of paint it out. We do something called like time bingo. So each of the 60 seconds you can get on any of your minutes, people try to get every different second on a finish. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like 23 or 72, whatever. So,
Yeah.
and so that we find ways of engaging people dependent on what it is that they may connect with. Because not
Mhm.
everyone will want to go super fast, but some will. And over the years, we've actually produced a number of incredible Olympians that originally started in like the junior park run,
Yeah.
and then they go on to, like, for example, Alex Yee and Georgia Hunter Bell. They've all come through Parkrun and sort of honed their skills of racing there, and then gone on to incredible things.
Yeah, because it's like I had Cole Gibbons on last year, and he is, he ran, was it a 216 in London last year, and he was saying that I think his family, they took dancing classes, and one day on the way home in the car, he saw a park run from afar, and he was like, I want to do that, and ever since he was hooked on like running. So it's
There
incredible.
you
Like
go.
that I think that
Yeah,
was my first introduction to parkrun when I heard about it, and I was like, "This is so smart because you will,
yeah,
like you said, you you will have people who will go on and win big things, but you will also have people who are just like, kind of back to what you were saying before, taking care of your loved ones by taking care of yourself, which I think is
exactly.
beautiful. It's
Yeah,
just
and it's such a family thing.
yeah,
Like an event like that, it's such a family thing that you can all do together. Because often when you think of young kids and parents, like they'll take them to a sport club, and what does the parent do? They just sit on the sideline
yeah,
or clap from the side or on their phone. We want them to not only come, and in the junior park run, it's not just the kids that run; the parents run,
yeah.
if they can keep up. Like some of the kids are actually way too quick for their parents, but like we try to make it a thing that everyone can come and get involved with and enjoy. And yeah, it's just amazing where the journeys that you hear that people go on when they come to that first park run, and it just has a shift in their behavior
Mm,
that goes outside of the event. So let's say they start getting into park run, they go, oh, and they start realizing that actually I maybe want to eat better
mm.
because I want to focus a bit more on doing better at the next park run, etc., etc. I'm going to sleep better, etc. And so it just helps in so many ways to give that positive behavior change. And the more and more we can widen the participation and get an even wider, diverse range of people coming, the better.
Yeah, and also the fact that it's for free, right? Because that
Oh yeah,
also that makes it easier for everyone, regardless of their status, like income, whatever. I heard about, it was actually yesterday. I was listening to a podcast where here in Norway, which is silly, they have it's not a park run, but it's like a 5K race in the middle of the week
mm.
somewhere. And if a 13-year-old was to do that, it would be $60 per person.
Oh
And then
wow.
yeah, and then it's like if you have say you have 3 or 4 kids, it's just gonna be like a big chunk of that monthly budget. So it's just like,
100%.
and most of us, we don't put aside a budget for a weekly 5K, and so I think
Yeah.
that that
No, I'll be surprised. Only a very few families do that. And like,
yeah.
because I remember when Parkrun was growing, one of the fears was that if there's this free running event that's timed and you get all sorts of stuff, then surely all the like paid for running events will suffer.
Mhm.
It was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And in fact, it actually suddenly invigorated both 5K and beyond in terms of attendance numbers is hugely through the roof. And we get attendances in the UK that other European nations don't even get a tiny bit of.
Mm.
Like huge numbers in even small, tiny regional towns where, they will fill out their 5 and 10K and
Yeah.
half marathon events. And that's all been a lot of it because of Parkrun.
Yeah.
Yes, they can get the free Parkrun there, but it just inspires them to take their running on and forward.
Yeah, because it's definitely something that I've been, following from afar, but also I was in Manchester last summer and, just seeing that community that is built, something that I really wish that I had here. And I'm sure that some listeners are now thinking that, oh, I wish we had it here, or maybe they do have it in their country or in their city and they can go do it. But how can people also help or be a volunteer? Because like for me, I have a very busy life. I couldn't do this every week. I couldn't help out every week. But if I wanted to
Mm,
just contribute to something say a few
yeah,
Saturdays every year, how would I
yeah,
go about doing that and kind of establishing it
absolutely.
maybe also in your country if it's not there already?
Yeah, so like to find out if it's in your country, go on the Parkrun website and we have a map. And we're in 22 countries, so there's a good chance we may well be there. If, for example, it's in your country, but there isn't one nearby, then we're always looking out for teams, volunteer teams in each of sort of these new territories and new areas to form a parkrun. And we will support you in doing that and provide you with the necessary resources to do that. Now, if you do find an event nearby, I totally get it. Like volunteering regularly is a huge commitment. So one thing that we've championed at Parkrun, and actually why we've seen our volunteer numbers increase year on year, is micro volunteering. So let's say you want to help out, but you can't help out every weekend or even close to every weekend. That's fine. Like you can literally volunteer as much or as little as you want. You just go to the course page. Let's say you live in Oslo. You go to the Oslo Parkrun course page. There's a an area where you can click to say that you can volunteer. There's a number of different roles. You can say that maybe you want to be a marshal, cheering people on. Maybe you want to help with the course setup, putting out a few cones and direction signs so people know where they're going. Maybe you want to help at the end and scan the barcodes to give people the results. It's all very simple and not complicated stuff. And you can do it once, you can do it 5 times, you can do as many as you want, and you can literally tell them the day before. So if on Friday you think, oh, actually I'm free tomorrow, I can go down. You can let them know. You can even let them know on the day. So sometimes I'll go to a park run, and I will say, look, I'm free. I can do a volunteer, and they will always find a role for you. And in particular for the faster runners, you can run and volunteer. So what
Yeah.
I will do is I'll often do the barcode scanning because the barcode scanning is at the end once people have sort of finished. So I'll run, hopefully come near the front if all comes well, and then I'll scan the barcode. So there's so many different ways that you can participate and you can volunteer, and there is no expectation. So when you do that one volunteer, no one's expecting you to come back. You come back if you want to, and when you want to, and how you want to. And I think that's what works so well, that kind of micro volunteering where you don't have to pledge anything, you don't have to promise anything. You just come and you do what you can. And one of kind of the unwritten rules is we try to encourage people that for every sort of 10th attendance of completing a park run, try and do a volunteer. So you have like a sort of 10-to-1 ratio. And then that way it can keep running and it can keep working. And it's just, in my view, the volunteering bit, it's the best bit for my mental health. There's nothing like having 400 people saying thank you and you knowing that you've helped them to have a great Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it fills your cup like nothing else.
Mhm. I love that. And I think it's great what you were saying also because I think about the like good for your mental health because whenever I've left a marathon, and especially like Boston, where you have so many people and you just see that
Mhm.
everyone's there to run, have fun, and everyone's so nice to each other. There's this unity. And especially like if you read media, it could seem like the world is just so polarized. And then you see
Yeah.
this and you just be like, hmm, the world is a pretty cool place. It's a lot of good
100%.
people, and that's where I feel like it confirms time after time when attending this. And I'm sure you get the same feeling at a park run if there are so many people
You've
there.
summed it up beautifully. Like honestly, you should just cut that bit out, and that's the bit that you could send over to me because I think we could send that far and wide. It's that it's that positive feeling and knowing that there's other people that are just good people in your community. It's just fantastic. Like as a clinician, I will signpost patients to Park Run that are, let's say, isolated or feeling low or feeling alone, and they always come back going, oh, that was great. Like I just didn't expect that, and I don't know what I was expecting, but that was just so much fun. I've met up with like, in fact, I'll tell you, like one patient last week told me that they like this is a she's about maybe mid-60s, female, never run before. And when I said, I think you should think about going down to Parkrun, she laughed. Like, she's like, "Are you joking? I've never run before." And I said, I don't want you to go down there to run. I just think it'd be nice to just go there, volunteer. I think people would appreciate your support and help. She came in because she was feeling, really quite isolated and lonely. She lives on her own. And I think you'll meet a few people. So she went there and she volunteered in terms of helping set up the course and put their things out, and she really enjoyed it. And she met another volunteer who actually accompanied her to go down to London one day just to have a look at an art exhibition, which she hadn't gone for years since her husband died. She never felt confident traveling to London on her own on the train. And this lady just went along with her, and she said that, "Do you know what? If I hadn't got out the front door of my house, gone to that park run, met some other people that, I connected with, I'd have never done things like that." And she was telling me all the other things that she was going to go and do from that. And you can't get that in a pill. I can't
Oh,
prescribe that. Like,
oh,
it just doesn't work like that. But just that simple action of just sending her into her community and meeting other people, because I know the volunteers at Parkrun are just all lovely people that will take her in, make her feel welcome, and these kind of results come out.
hmm. If that doesn't make you emotional, I don't know what does. Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, just being able to look at it from that, like what you say. I don't want you to run. I just think it would be good for
Mm.
you to come watch people volunteer and help out, like, or meet people. So
Exactly,
so
exactly. Because I think
simple.
that's what community is about.
Yeah, so
Like, if she never
simple but
runs,
so
that's
effective.
fine.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's amazing, and it also makes me like all of this conversation with around Parkrun and your story. Like, I feel like it's kind of a full circle moment with all of this, because
Mm.
what I was thinking about is like from a doctor's perspective, like um, you know how our bodies work, and uh, honestly, like I expect myself to run a fast marathon because I'm a former athlete. Like I come from sports, and so whenever I felt like I was overweight, it was not like by a lot. It was like, okay, I'm 3 to 4 to 5 kilos
Yeah.
heavier than I used to be, and so no one would say that I was overweight, but I would feel like it myself. And
Mm.
then, and we have much crazier examples than you, unlike people starting to run and being much more unhealthy, but still
Mm.
you are proving that at the age of 25 you haven't been very active, it sounds like. And then
At all.
how old are you today?
37.
Yeah, so within like 12 years you gone from non-active at all to running a 237 marathon, which is like most people or obviously most people will never run into a 37 marathon, but most people will also be just like blown away by that time. It's so incredible. And I think that it kind of just also, I guess, confirms that running you can start and you don't have to have done a lot of sports before. But I'm curious,
Yeah.
like, what is your take on that part as a doctor and with the physical abilities that we we have as human beings? I- Is that something that everyone can do, or do you think that you had like an extraordinary talent as well?
It's a really good question, and it's something that I've discussed and talked about before. And I think definitely there is variation in terms of your genetic potential to achieve in various different sports, and it differs from sport to sport as to which particular components are most required. But that range, I think, is far narrower than what most people think. And it's actually how you apply yourself and how you maximize. So there will be, if we're thinking of like absolute elite level sport, then yes, there will be certain proportion of people that no matter how hard they work, no matter how young they started, it's just never going to happen. But if we're just instead thinking about kind of in where I'm working in, which is the kind of, like, yeah, high performance to kind of normal performance, um, everyone has the capability, in my view, as long as health conditions allow and they don't have any particular physical or mental disabilities that means that they can't undertake certain things, they have the potential to do quite a lot. And obviously, that will vary between different ages and different genders. But one thing I would say is always just focus on trying to apply yourself as best as possible, and don't give yourself an arbitrary target. So when I have been going through this running journey, I never decided that, like, from the beginning, I want to run a sub 245. Like,
Yeah.
it only comes into view as the work that you do demonstrates certain results. So, like early days, it was just try and run 5K without stopping, and that took weeks. And then eventually you run 5K without stopping, and it feels amazing. And then, after that, you think, oh, okay, maybe I can take a few minutes off. And you just slowly build. Don't concentrate on where the end potential is. Just concentrate on what's the next step. And I find that many sort of, they sort of lose focus before they can really meet their max potential. Maybe after a few years, they sort of tone it down or they decide against. But just try and make sure that if your training is such that you're not really enjoying it, then it's not the right training.
No.
And so, for example, when I finally clicked and got it right, so all this training in this particular Boston cycle, I enjoyed every bit of it. You hear online people saying, a third of the sessions you'll feel good, in a third you'll feel all right, third bad. Actually, no. Like, I completely shifted it to going, I'm just going to enjoy all of it. If
Why do you
I'm
think
not
you were
quite,
able to do that?
why do you
Yeah.
say?
Or yeah, why or how were
I
you
think
able?
because, well, the reason I decided to shift to that is because I was trying out the other method where, I was actually really trying to push beyond, and there were sessions that were just really awful. But I thought, okay, well, a third of them you're not supposed to enjoy, and I'm definitely not enjoying this one. Um, I was just getting injured. I was just getting injured. So, like,
Mhm.
for example, Boston in 25, I got to that and I hadn't run for 6 weeks because I got injured. And it was just injury after injury after injury. And it was just clearly my body just could not tolerate that training stimulus. And so, as soon as I just toned it down and I focused on quality and I focused on adapting, like, even if I had planned out my sessions and I go, oh, well, technically I'm supposed to do this and I don't feel great, I would just adapt and say, that's fine. I will stop. I'll move this backwards. I will then do it then. We'll get through it. And yes, of course, like, this is different to sort of motivation in the sense that if you only went out when you felt really like you wanted to do it, then this isn't going to work. Like, you're going to have to find yourself to get motivated. But I'm talking about physical feeling. When your body feels just knackered,
Yeah.
you have to rest. You have to recover. You can't just expect to keep loading on top of knackered, because that will just end up like how I experienced in getting injured. So it's that kind of shift that's important.
Mhm. And if we were to, like, at the end of our conversation here, chat a little bit about that training that you done, like if we
Mm.
take the last Boston block here as an example, uh, what did your training look like?
Yeah. So first step was I extended it. So normally I would do like 16 block of kind of marathon focused stuff on top of what I'm normally always active to some degree, but not obviously marathon kind of levels. But I turned it from 16 to 24 weeks. And then what I did was I applied a lot more progression. And what's called periodization. So this is where you sort of have, let's say, 3 weeks where you slowly build up the load, and then a fourth week where you significantly drop the load for a week, and then you build up again, and you're slowly doing like a line where eventually you're going up over time, but you've got these big weeks of recovery every fourth week. So periodization became a real staple of what I was doing. The next thing that I did was I broke up more runs. So instead of doing, let's say, what I was doing was about, let's say, 6 runs a week over 6 days. I did 5 days of running, but 7 runs.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So, like,
Hmm.
some days I do a double run. So therefore, I'm not doing always, let's say, 15K. I'd break that up into 2 7.5s or whatever, just to sort of move things around and allow the recovery. And I built that into my lifestyle. So I'd often run or cycle to work, or I would run to the gym, which is about 5K away. I'd always just find ways to just get in more of those smaller runs rather than trying to load it up onto the specific
Yeah.
sessions on the 6 days. I did more cross training, but in a more specific way, because I've always cycled. I've always loved triathlon. So I'd always have that in some component. But instead of before, where I would do sometimes up to 250 to 300 kilometers of cycling per week, I actually reduced the amount of cycling, and I focused on doing just structured sessions on a indoor turbo rather than just cycling outside on longer rides, because what I wanted to do was focus on some of the key kind of physiological adaptations that I wanted. So I did a lot of zone 3 riding and zone 4 riding because I found that I could get into those zones and not experience the same muscle fatigue the
Yeah.
next day.
Hmm.
So I would drop off one of the harder sessions on a run and replace it with one of those bike sessions. But you can't replace them all because you do need the running muscle adaptation. So you can't just say, okay, all my interval sessions I'm going to do on the bike. You won't get it in that way. You do need to ensure you are running faster on those legs enough times for it to adapt in that sense. And then in terms of total mileage, before I used to top out in, let's say, the last 3 or 4 weeks before the marathon at around 100 to 120 kilometers per week. I topped out at about 85 to 90.
Interesting.
So and that the whole block was comparatively less as what I would do before by about maybe 10 to 15%. And that was enough
Mhm.
because like I felt the difference. And
But
in
did you
fact,
then
like
up?
it improved.
Did you up the cross training then so that in terms of hours that you were at about the same, or did the total
Actually,
load also was less? Okay.
less cross training in terms of hours on the bike
Mm.
because I sort of stopped doing the long rides and I stopped doing kind of sort of any kind of outdoor riding, which tends to take a bit longer. And I just did more indoor rides where I do 1 hour. So my
Yeah.
cross training was about 3 to 4 hours a week of 3 to 4 bike sessions. Two of them hard at like zone 3 and then zone 4, and then two of them easy at sort of zone 2-ish kind of riding, more kind of recovery rides. Another thing that I did, I just completely forgot, but really important, was I did a lot more plyometrics.
Yeah.
So in the gym, doing pogo sticks, hop and stick, doing drop jumps, loads of kind of plyometrics in and around the strength training, around squats, leg press, and Bulgarian stuff, and so that massively helped, in particular in the final 10 kilometers of your marathon. There's a great study, in fact, by my friend that I mentioned at the beginning, Dr. Mikhail Zanini, as part of his PhD. I was one of the athletes that he had in his study, which showed that the most important aspect from a performance point of view of strength training is the final kick in a marathon. That sort of
Yeah.
speed that you can get near the end. Yes, it's great for injury prevention, but in terms of performance perspective, it's giving you the power when your legs are fatigued. And they had a protocol which you can copy if you just search online, Zanini et al. Strength training for runners. They published the full protocol. It's a 10-week strength protocol which consisted of leg press, single leg, squats, calf raises, and then these free plyometrics that you do. I essentially followed that program that I'd done with him, and that massively helps. And if you look at my like Strava for the Boston Marathon run, my fastest half was the second half, and my fastest 10K was the final 10K, and my fastest 5K was the final 5K. Like,
Wow.
so I was just getting stronger and stronger as the race was going in, and it was thanks to that strength bit.
Yeah. So during the block, if you're like, if you look at this training, the strength training or the plyometrics that you were doing, uh, did you also get some signs during that? Oh, this is really working.
Do you know what? The biggest sign was when I ran a park run just on the Saturday, and I was running it as a tempo session, and I got 16. No, it was like 16:22, and my all-time 5K PB was 16:16, and I didn't even run that 100%. Like, I wasn't really looking at my watch. I just was running at 90%, doing it as a tempo session, and I saw that, and I was like, wow. Like, I wasn't even trying, and I was within 5 seconds of my PB. So then the next weekend, I was like, John, give this a go. And I got 16:09. And then I was like, okay, wow. And it wasn't even a flat course. So then I went to a flat course and I thought, okay, let's give this a go. And I got 15:54.
Wow.
And I knew that, okay, whatever I'm doing, these changes that I'm doing, although I'm not even training specifically for 5K, I am on a different plane to what I was previously.
Yeah.
Because when I got those PBs was back when I was much lighter. I was about 69 kilos and I was like a little whippet. I don't know if whippet translates beyond English, but and so because since then, and that was about in 2019, 2020, I got really into strength training. So I do a lot more strength training, upper body. I don't do it from a running perspective. I just do it because I just enjoy strength
Mhm.
training now. And so I always thought that now that I'm 76, 77 kilos, even though similar body composition in terms of body fat percentage, I always thought the extra weight would mean that I'd never see those 5K times the
Yeah.
16:16s that I'd done before. But then when I got it on this, I thought, ooh, okay, maybe I've been blaming a little bit of extra muscle too much, and actually, if I did some proper training, I can get the speed. And so that gave me the confidence that it'll come.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to wrap it up soon, but I do have to ask you about your workouts and your or your sessions, I guess you call it in British,
Mm,
and your long run. What did they usually look like? And also
yeah.
if you can quickly touch on what your like your how easy you were running your easy runs.
Yeah. Really good point. Okay, so the long run is I would slowly build it up, starting off at between 18 to 20K and finishing off at the end of the block at about 32K. I wanted to get like a bit of a longer one. 34, 35 is normally where I like to get to, actually, but I just didn't have it in the time frame that I did, and with the adaptations I had to make to listen to the body. So I had to end on 32, which is fine. And I break that into 4K warm up, and then I will do 5K at marathon effort. And I tend to go a bit faster than marathon effort in those 5Ks by about 3-4 seconds per K. And then 1K sort of jogging comfortably, and then 5K, 1K. And I just keep doing that. And depending on how long the overall session is how many of those 5K blocks I will build into that. So that's the long run.
Is that the same for
And
the whole block? So you do like the same kind, yeah.
yeah, 5K.
Mm,
And sometimes I'd have to tweak it because like it wouldn't 5K wouldn't add up
yeah.
correctly. So maybe
Yeah.
the last bit would be 3K or 4K. I'd make it add up to the right. But I always like to do it in 5K increments because I found
Mhm.
that if I did it shorter than that, it's not long enough to really get that feeling of you're in that marathon pace. And any longer, then you're potentially putting too much load on the system than is necessary to recover from. So yeah, so 5K with 1K breaks in between, and then a cool down of about 3K afterwards. And in the long run, always practice the nutrition and the clothing that I would wear on race
Yeah.
day. So even if I was just running a half marathon, I would take my nutrition at the exact points that I was planning to take it in the marathon. Just as it got longer, just more nutrition would come in. And I could sort of play with that and see what I could tolerate. In terms of the tempo session, I would start off at 5K, doing that right at the beginning of the block, and I'd slowly build up to a maximum of about 14, 15K tempo. And that would be at kind of the equivalent of um, maybe like an 8 out of 10 effort for that distance. So it's done on feel. I wouldn't look at heart rate. I had a rough idea because when I did that testing with Dr. Zanini, he gave me an idea of where that tempo threshold is. So I kind of knew the rough pace that I just need to sit in, but I wasn't too anal about making sure it was exactly there.
So was it just a
And then my
continuous run? So
yeah,
yeah, so
continuous. Yeah,
no
obviously warming
repeats,
up
but
into
just
it,
yeah.
but continuous.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
continuous. Just doing it in one go and being consistent and really focusing on keeping the form and good stride throughout. And then for intervals, like I mixed it up. So I would do a mix of 800-meter repeats, 8 times 8 or times 10. And one session that I really like to do is you do a warm up, you do 2 times 1K, 3 times 800 meters, 4 times 600 meters, 5 times 400 meters, and then 6 times 150 meters. That is a rough session, but oh my God. Like, if you want to push up that top end speed, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's like those things in the gym where you slowly go down on the weights, because your
Yeah.
arms are getting more and
Yeah.
more knackered. And then at the end, 2 kilos feel like an
Mhm.
absolute, like rock. That's kind of the equivalent in running style. By the time you get to those 150s, you think, oh, it's only 150 meters. But by that point, you're just like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
150 meters feels like a marathon. So yeah, that one was a really kind of important one that I did a few times and went back to. And then the other ones would be generally longer intervals. So I do 2 mile repeats, and I do some mile repeats where I could. And I really made sure I protected those sessions.
Yeah.
So I would go into them feeling good. Like if I woke up on that day and it's supposed to be that session and I didn't feel good, then I would rest and I would do it on the next day. And I would cancel an easy run to make sure that one happened.
I think that is like such an important takeaway from this. Yeah, that like the workouts are good, but if you don't time them well with how you're feeling, it's never gonna work, right?
Yeah, especially when you're working and everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes I'd have a really busy day at work, and I'm planning to do some one of those sessions in the evening. That's just not going to happen.
Mhm.
Like it's not going to work. So I just have to just adapt and go. Okay, this has happened. Don't stress out. There'll be another day. I'll do it in the morning. I'll go to sleep early tonight rather than just procrastinate.
Yeah,
And let's get that session sorted in the morning. If you want it enough, you'll do it. And I think that's the real key. When you're going to a block, you need to make sure you want it enough and
yeah.
you give yourself reminders of why you're doing it, because there'll be many opportunities throughout where you just go, oh, I can't be
Mhm.
asked. But
But
you've got to nail it. It's about the consistency.
I assume that you like the long run was something that was constant throughout the block, like on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
So the workouts that you were now describing, did you have one of them in addition to the long run, or did you have two of those and then the long run?
So I didn't do long run every weekend. I did it every other,
Hmm.
so every fortnight. And the interval sessions, I actually did one every week. So I found that that was really helpful for me. And I enjoy intervals more than the long run particularly. The long run I like, but I just find it a bit dull after a while. But the intervals I kind of enjoyed doing and kind of enjoyed pushing. So that would be midweek, which would obviously be the challenge with work and that kind of thing. And generally, I always perform better when I woke up earlier and did it before work rather than
Yeah.
trying to do it after work. And so I try to always do it like that and leave any kind of easy runs for kind of post work
Mm,
kind of stuff.
yeah. Okay. Uh,
And then the easy run pace, because you did
yeah.
ask me about
Yeah.
that. That's another key thing. I slowed down the easy run pace because, yeah, Dr. Zini said I was doing them way too quick. Because before, I'd run my easy runs at like a 4:12 pace, 4:15.
Oh
And like
wow.
in
Yeah.
reality, that's not that far off, what marathon pace was, which is like 3:42 kind of thing. And so he actually encouraged me to run around a 3:38 to a 3:38.
Yeah.
Wow, a 4:38
Yeah.
to a 4:45 for the easy runs. And at first, it felt like, oh, this feels like nothing. Like, why am I even running? But then you realize, because the next day you don't wake up with any aches. It
Yeah.
just feels so great.
Yeah.
So try and be, good on not spoiling your other runs just because you made your easy
Mhm.
run a bit quicker.
Yeah. Cool. And then just to clarify on the workouts, you said you like to have the intervals every week. On the weeks that you
Mm.
didn't have your long run, did you add one of those other sessions then, so that you replaced the long run kind of with that? So you had or did you just have one workout those weeks?
No, I would replace it with some cross training.
Yeah.
So it would be with a cycle session or a swim or something, but aimed at sort of going for that longer, lower zone. So
Yeah.
a top of zone two,
Yeah.
bottom of zone three, trying to simulate a long run, but without the sort of the mileage and the
Yeah.
distance. Because I found that although it's really hard to pinpoint where you get your injuries from, but it always seemed to center around the long run
Hmm.
that I was my Achilles heel when it came to an injury. So I just wanted to be really cautious on that front. And so I tried to only do them every fortnight to give myself the time to recover.
Yeah. And does that mean that the if you did intervals one week, that was the only workout or the harder session you had that week, and then
Yeah, the
yeah,
only harder one. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. And then
Sometimes you would
tempo,
only
I
have
would do.
yeah.
Yeah, tempo I'd do like maybe every other week, that kind of thing, but it wouldn't be a necessity in every single week.
Mm,
Often I do the tempo on the week that I'm not doing the long run.
yeah. Okay. Cool. Super interesting, and I feel like we covered a lot in these like 70
Mm,
minutes that we talked. I feel like we have this like great full circle thing that I need to kind of ask you the last question, because I'm sure a lot of people are now asking themselves after listening to this, and especially you talked about, high blood pressure. It was what,
mm,
yeah, and your fat liver. Uh, how how did or what happened to that when you started running and you started changing your lifestyle?
yeah, yeah. So when I spoke to the doctor after he got the report for the scans, he encouraged me to start two different medications to try to manage the blood pressure. And at that time, there were no medications for fatty liver disease. There is now. They use the weight loss injections that you may have heard of
Yeah.
for that. And I went to him. I said, I'm in my mid 20s. I don't want to start medication. Is there anything I can do to not have to go on that? And he said, no, there's nothing. It's just this. And so I went home and I was like, I had the prescription because he gave it to me, and it was just paper. I hadn't gone to the pharmacy, and I just thought, I don't want to take these meds. Like, and so I started doing research. I went online, looking it up, looking at, the technical term for fatty liver disease, which is called MASLD, metabolically associated steatotic liver disease. And I could see papers coming out around the impact of physical activity on reversing fat infiltration in the liver, whether it caused weight loss or not. Because that's the important thing. Physical activity helps with extracting fat out of the liver, even if you don't lose weight. And I started reading about the things you can change in your diet that can actually influence the inflammation in your liver, that can lower your blood pressure. There's something called DASH, which is dietary approach to stop hypertension. And I thought, okay, let's give this a go. And I gave it a go. And you asked about how it is going. Well, blood pressure is completely normal and has been normal since. My liver, when they got it scanned again, had pretty much non-existent fat infiltration in it. Everyone have a small amount. That's natural. It's normal to have a little bit, but completely reversed. And when I spoke to the doctor and he asked me how I was finding the medications, I said I never actually got them. I never took them to the pharmacy. And he goes, "How did this happen?" And I was like, "Well, I did X, I did Y, Z." And he was like, "Oh, maybe I should read into that." And
Yeah.
so if all I can say that I've achieved from this process is that one healthcare professional decided and realized that there is so much more to health than medications and surgery, which are important,
I guess
but they are not
too,
everything.
with you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Oh, it completely changed my practice.
Yeah.
Genuinely, completely changed. I never mentioned exercise, nutrition, sleep, anything to a patient before I did it on myself. And I feel ashamed. I feel really ashamed that I never even thought about it. And still to this day, we're not being educated on it. I run training courses now for clinicians once they've graduated, but they should be getting this in medical school.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They should be getting it in medical school throughout the training because it is the pillars of health. And at the end of the day, the patient is the most important member of the health team because they're the one actually doing the
Hmm.
work every day.
Hmm.
If you don't have them involved and then motivated and engaged, then it's pointless.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It really is pointless. So, yeah, we're not in that point anymore. Blood pressure's good, liver's good.
Awesome. Perfect way to end this podcast. Thank you so much, Hussein, for sharing everything that you have. I appreciate it, and yeah, I'm so happy that we met at that recovery
Me too.
room at
Me too.
Marathon Sports.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much to Hussein for coming on the Marathon podcast. Really appreciate that. I really appreciate everything that he had, like he shares, and the story. I feel like this is such an inspiration to so many people. And he proves that it's never too late. And I hope that you can take something away from this. So thank you, Hussein. Thank you for being who you are and for the inspiration you are, and to you for listening. Really appreciate you. And I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wild Studio and me.